Okay, good morning, everyone. Here we are with chapter 15, the grand finale in Cali. So this chapter is another deep healing chapter involving questions about guidance and the fear of making a wrong decision. There's quite a lot in it, but the core deep healing that happens here in this chapter is the past resurfacing, a past relationship coming up, just when there's so much intensity and just going through such a wash of, can I do this? Will I make it? And then here comes a past relationship that seemed so light and attractive. And it's just very profound to see the way that the Spirit, through David, has handled this with the same prayer and inclusion and welcome that every aspect of healing has. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 15, the grand finale in Cali, fall 2005. We start with a quote from the Course, which this quote really does set up the entire chapter and is the thread through the whole, not only the whole chapter, I would say the whole journey. Nothing you can do can change eternal love. The right decision. David was invited to Medellin, Colombia, for a weekend of gatherings, and I felt to stay in Cali. I was invited by 4 different friends to spend the weekend with them, and I found myself not knowing what to do. I felt the pressure of making the right decision and was concerned that I could get it wrong and miss out on being where the Spirit would have me be. I turned to the Holy Spirit. Journaling, Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. What would you have me do? Holy Spirit, remember me. You are getting caught up in the world as if it means something, as if the figures in the dream, the things, places, and events are meaningful in themselves. The world's a stage, and the props are meaningless unless given to me to communicate to you with. Kirsten. Okay, I give them all back to you, including the belief that I am needed. I will be guided by you. I want only peace. I went into prayer and felt at peace. Very soon, a phone call came in, and I knew I should pack and go with friends to their farm in Papayan for the weekend. Weekend with Angels. Journaling. Good morning, Holy Spirit. Talk to me about last night. I know I can't but be in the right place at the right time, but I felt a slight urge to be somewhere else, spending the weekend differently. Holy Spirit, you could have spent the weekend elsewhere and with different people, but the truth is that who you are with is always the right setting for learning and healing to take place. You can choose to spend your weekend in doubt, wondering if you should be elsewhere, or you can spend every moment with me, devoted to God. Remember that I can use any and all of the symbols, props around you to guide you home, but only when your awareness is with me. Doubt is of the ego, and it blocks your awareness of me. Kirsten, so everything is perfect. Holy Spirit, it is when you spend every moment with me. Kirsten, thank you. I feel clear. Anything I should read? Holy Spirit, read Lesson 291. This is a day of stillness and peace. Spend every moment with me, aware of me, as if holding my hand. Remember stillness and peace. I had a wonderful weekend with my new friends, two of whom had profound mystical experiences and changes in perception. We meditated for hours, listened to angelic music, took siestas, toasted marshmallows, and sang around the campfire. Back in the fire. Journaling. Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. I feel self-conscious. There is so much emphasis on the body here in this city. I feel torn between rejecting all focus on the body and wanting to be attractive. There are beautiful women everywhere, many of whom have had plastic surgery. It's like walking past supermodels every day. In New Zealand, I was happy in t-shirts and jeans. At the Peace House, I underwent a huge process of letting go of caring about looks, as well as beliefs in nutrition, diet, and exercise. Now I find I'm judging myself and everyone else based on looks. Help. I want out. Holy Spirit, give the body thoughts to me. The body is not who you are. It is not your home. It has nothing to do with God's love for you. All body thoughts are of the ego, regardless of how dressed up they appear to be. Kirsten, I know, and I can't stand it. I don't like compliments about the body, let alone leering looks from men, any more than I like criticism. I don't want myself or anyone else to focus on it. The constant, thinly disguised focus on the body is why it's hard to be here. The ego gets competitive and wants to look as good as. I start judging and objectifying myself and others, and before long I'm in hell. Holy Spirit, Give it all to me. It's good that it has come up into awareness. It was already in the mind, and now it is coming up to be released. The pressure comes from feeling that you have to act on the thoughts, that you have to look better or different, that you are not perfect and as God created you. Kirsten, okay, Holy Spirit, I give all of these body thoughts to you. I don't want to repress, reject, or act on any of them. I want to know myself as whole. I want to know my brothers and sisters as God created them to be. Is there anything else? I still feel tired and tearful. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be around people. I want to be with David and to rest. I don't want to think about anyone else, problems, or the future. Holy Spirit, give all of your worries to me. Look to the Spirit for love and understanding. Look to the Spirit for love and understanding. Maria and I met at the gatherings in Colombia. We felt an instant connection with each other. Maria was a devoted course student, and she felt that the Spirit had brought me to Colombia just for her. Her husband had passed away some years before, and I was invited to stay at her quiet 2-bedroom apartment, which was only 5 minutes from Lily's place. The contrast between the two environments was like night and day. Lily's place was high energy, with horns blaring constantly in the streets below. Lily herself was also highly energetic and spontaneous. One or the other of us was often going through some kind of emotional crisis. So this invitation from Maria was the Spirit offering me a quiet respite. But sensing my hesitation, David said he would visit me at Maria's and that I could return to Lily's place any time I felt the need to do so. Taking a small bag with me to Maria's house, I found myself sinking into stillness immediately. It had been a while since I'd felt so relaxed. That evening, I felt I needed to have a quiet night rather than go to the gathering. I asked David if he would come to be with me after the gathering, and he said no, that he would stay at Lily's apartment. I expressed my need for him to come back, and he said that he needed rest and would be up early in the morning hours to answer emails. Maria's apartment was only 5 minutes away, and with email access at both houses, his answer didn't make any sense to me. I felt very alone and upset. My thoughts were, I thought we were supposed to be in this together, that David would be here for me if I needed him. Waking the next morning, I still felt anguish that I was apart from David. Journaling. Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. Please help me. I'm still holding on to the feeling that David should have stayed with me. Holy Spirit, read Workbook Lesson 293. All fear is past, and only love is here. I read and took notes. All fear is past, and only love is here. Let go of past mistakes. See only present love, a forgiven world. Let go of everything that is unlike love. Holy Spirit, let it go. Trust in me. There is always a different way of seeing. Give past mistakes and your perceptions of your brother's mistakes to me. Let them go and ask to see with me. Forgive your brother. Kirsten, I want to let this go, but I'm still holding on to hurt and anger, and I want only peace. I give it all to you. Holy Spirit, well done, my child. Now you can hear my voice. Remember, I am always with you. You are never alone. Every experience is for the purpose of healing. Rely not on form for your safety and peace, or you will be hurt and disappointed. Last night you were in the perfect place with one who loves you. It is only your lack of trust that can disturb your peace. All things work together for good. Trust in me always. You have called on healing, and healing is what you're going through. Trust this always. This is what you want. Let the fear come up and look to me for love and understanding, not to your own thoughts of how it should be. Kirsten, oh, that's it. It's my own version of how it should be that is always the problem. It comes with a feeling of injustice and leads to distressing feelings, which are all based on hypotheticals. Phew, thank you so much. Holy Spirit, I love you. Desire for joining. Journaling. Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. What message do you have for me today? Holy Spirit, this is all for you. Every moment of this day is for you. The script was written long ago, and you can observe from a place of safety. Pay attention to the messages you receive today. There are no accidents. I am with you. Turn to me for clarity and right perception if you are in doubt at any time. Kirsten. Last night, David told me of a conversation he'd had with our friend Carlos, who had noticed that although there were many course groups in Cali, they seemed to be separate. Carlos wished they would join together. This morning it was mentioned that 3 course groups were coming together for the first time to join us at the gathering. Well, no accidents. Holy Spirit, perfect. Never underestimate the power of the mind that joins with the desire for healing. Kirsten, I can feel it. Anything to add? Holy Spirit, read Workbook Lesson 36. My holiness envelops everything I see. I read through the lesson and had a wonderful day. The past resurfaces. In a few days, David and I would catch our return flight back to Florida, where we'd left our car, before continuing on our journey to the South Pacific. The time in Cali had been a full-on month in which I faced the fear of death, jealousy, possessiveness, and body thoughts, all the while surrounded by the continual buzz of car alarms, mobile phones, and general go-go-go of a big city. To top it all off, I received an email from Simon, my past love. We hadn't been in communication for 2 years, but he'd certainly come to my mind when I had entertained thoughts of escaping to the past. The timing of Simon's email was unbelievable. It came right when I had been going through such intensity and was at a decision point. My relationship with Simon had been light and exploratory, whereas my relationship with David involved facing the darkest of the dark in my mind. It seemed insane to consciously choose this for myself. And who could I even share my doubts with? No one would encourage me to stay in a relationship that was all about relinquishing independence and facing every type of darkness imaginable. No one would understand except for David. However, when I was doubting my relationship with him, My mind wanted to turn elsewhere. Journaling, Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. I feel so sad. I want to be with Simon. I feel trapped, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to move forward with any plans, but I can't go backwards either. Miami is a disaster zone. Tornadoes have ripped through the area, and our car that we left there may be totally wrecked. This feels like a reflection of my mind. Fleeing to New Zealand won't help, since it's even further away from Simon, who's in England. What if he and I are supposed to reunite? Now that I know about the ego, and that this was what we were facing when we were together, I think that we could heal anything that came up. Initially, it felt good to be in touch with Simon, and I replied to his first email, pouring out the amazing experience of my life over the past 2 years. But when he wrote again, a lot of sadness came up for me. I knew I had to talk with David, even though I was afraid to share my thoughts and feelings about Simon. I felt disloyal and thought that surely David would tell me to leave. But his response was the total opposite of what the ego had said it would be. David was utterly loving and supportive. He was the epitome of unconditional love. He reminded me that our relationship was for healing and that it was all voluntary. I couldn't believe it when he said, "Would you like to look at flights to England and go and visit Simon?" He joined me fully in the exploration, as if it were no different than any other healing moment. I couldn't believe how generous he was. He wasn't trying to keep me or to control anything. In fact, he was willing to help me leave with such loving kindness that I couldn't hold back the tears. I felt safe and innocent and able to explore my thoughts fully with the Spirit. It felt like the softest thing in the world. Together, David and I explored the idea of looking for flights. As we opened up an airline website, I remembered what it was actually like to be with Simon. Although it had been a loving and helpful relationship at a time when I was beginning to explore spirituality, it had been well and truly maxed out. Simon's path was not one of mysticism, and mine was. I'd already tried to hold on to the relationship way past its completion date. With the spacious support being extended by David, I could intuitively feel that flying to London was not the direction I was to take. It didn't feel expansive. In fact, it felt small and fraught with what-ifs. This experience with David was an even deeper insight into the purpose of holy relationship. The context of the relationship was to provide a place in which to stay together with the Spirit, no matter what was arising to be looked at. Within this context, I was innocent no matter what came up for healing. My trust in David and his devotion to purpose deepened again that day. He truly wanted what was best for my awakening. I felt it in every part of my soul. Releasing the past to know love. Journaling. Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. I'm beginning to feel a gentle peace regarding Simon. He sent a long email with a link to his website with photos on it. Seeing how happy he is with his life warms my heart and confirms that our lives have gone in different directions. I don't want to resist, reject, or project anymore. I want only to trust you. Holy Spirit, stay with me. Read Workbook Lesson 345. I offer only miracles today, for I would have them be returned to me. Read also Principles of Miracles, numbers 23 to 25 from the text. I read the sections and took these notes. Hide nothing, and you are willing to enter into communion and understand peace and joy. Use time constructively. Miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when completed is the atonement. Kirsten, I am here only to be truly helpful. I stand up to leave and feel almost pushed back down onto the couch. We were obviously not finished. I suddenly remembered that over the recent months, my mind had been preoccupied with past thoughts about my family and Simon that clearly hadn't been released. Anything else, Holy Spirit? Holy Spirit, you are the extension of love. You are the extension of all that is. Give without expectation of any kind, and you will know God. Give without the thought of return in the future, and you will know God. To know God is to be like Him. God gives all without conditions. Your relationships with all of your brothers, including Simon and your family members, are no exception to this practice. You are projecting the past onto them. Unless you release the past entirely, you do not desire to know them truly. Love does not involve the past, and you know by the busy imaginings of your mind when a relationship is unholy and not of pure love. Simon is an opportunity to forgive and heal. Love does not have levels or special targets, and it does not lead into the future with a sense of stress or urgency. Kirsten, I feel peaceful and content now. My heart is filled with gratitude. Later, I realized that there was no one else with whom I could share this depth of healing with, because there was no one else that I was supposed to be sharing it with at this time. David was the one given by the Spirit. In opening up and including David, I dared to face the guilt and fear that it was wrong to even have these thoughts and feelings, which invited him to hold my hand and walk with me through it. In the end, there was nothing to do and no new steps to take. The healing occurred within my mind. It was an allowance of my desire for the safety of the past and the world as I had known it to be fully released from my mind. Mystical moments. The 3 organizers who had invited us to Colombia were excited to take us to the Juan Valdez National Coffee Park. We had a day free of gathering, and it was the perfect weather for a day trip. The park was a beautiful botanical garden with gentle pathways, sitting areas, and little cafes. As we approached one of the cafes, I began to go into a mystical experience. My perception changed, and everything went very soft and hazy. The gardens glowed. It was much like being in the ocean and seeing everything contained within the water. Everything was connected. I couldn't understand what anyone said. The voices sounded as if they were coming from above the water, whereas I had dropped deep beneath the surface, where everything was one and known. David noticed my sudden state of childlike wonder. Knowing intuitively what was happening, he took my hand. I couldn't read the menu or speak. David ordered me a coffee and an ice cream for himself, which felt perfect. Everything felt perfect. I was happily silent and apparently looked as if I were about 5 years old. After we left the coffee shop, David held my hand as we slowly walked through the gardens, following behind everyone else. The only moment I experienced fear was when one of our friends looked at me and seemed to be asking a question and expecting a response. I couldn't understand a word she said, but David answered for me. For a couple of hours, I floated happily through the gardens, holding David's hand as our friends chirped away like happy birds. Everyone was laughing and pointing at various flowers and gardens. It was so beautiful. And the final section is the course for everyone. We had our final gathering in Colombia 2 days later at a course student's farm. She and her group were very excited about the course. They were in the early passionate phase of wanting to tell the whole world about it and bring everyone along. Our host brought up the subject of her employee, a man in his late 60s who had lived his entire life on the farm. He interacted with people on the property, and once a month he took a brief trip into town for supplies. She asked David if she should invite him into their course group. David asked her to describe his state of mind. She shared the fact that he was always happy and grateful, thanking God when it rained and when the sun shone. He deeply appreciated every aspect of his work and loved living on the farm. Our host was worried that if her employee wasn't aware that it was all an illusion, that he might not wake up. She thought that perhaps she should bring him into the group so that he could learn the metaphysics. No, was the resounding chorus from David and several of our friends who'd spent the last 3 weeks with us. One of whom joyfully exclaimed, "Keep the book away from him." Our host was quite surprised. David went on to speak about the curriculum of forgiveness being for everyone, but the course itself being one path among many. A Course in Miracles came as an answer to a prayer from 2 highly educated research psychologists who were dissatisfied with their work and calling for a deeper connection with God. They were calling to be unwound from an intellectually driven life, which was on the opposite end of the spectrum to this man's simple life of prayer, gratitude, and awareness of divine providence. How beautiful and relaxing it was to think of this smiling man as a symbol of one who was on his path rather than as one in need of education. Thank you. Thank you for joining, everyone.